Hello! I don't buy a lot of English drums anymore. There's no particular reason for that other than really I've just been buying American. I haven't particularly avoided English drums for any reason, and actually whilst setting up for this video I actually realised that I've got more English drum kits than I actually have anyone else, which was a bit of an amusing realisation for me on that one. Fairly recently I actually got given, well actually it was another two, it wasn't just two, it was another two drums by a British company called Provenance. Now Provenance is actually, it's Provenance Drums to give it the full title. I've been friends with Tim, who is the guy from Provenance, for a couple of years now. He's actually been around here a few times, and I've reviewed a few of his drums, and I think this was probably the fifth and sixth drums, or maybe sixth and seventh drums I've seen of Tim's over the last few years. They've all been really cool. I've tried the Phantom one, I've tried the Rolls Royce one, as I said, I've tried the Whiskey Barrel one, and I also tried the 13x9 snare drum that he made for Tom Meadows, which was actually the snare drum that he used with the Craviotto kit, which or part of which is up there at the moment. So if you ever see photos of Tom with the white Craviotto kit and a big deep white snare drum, that was actually made by Provenance. So that was made by Tim, and I know that Tom used that on the Kylie tour and the Kylie stuff. So, but anyway, as I said, Tim makes really cool drums out of reclaimed material, hence the Provenance. Provenance being, in this instance, that this drum was made from something that had a previous life. And again, if you know anything about me from watching these videos and seeing the photos and stuff, you'll probably get a sense of why that appeals to me, and I think that's really cool. More recently though, this year, I actually got a piccolo, a 14x4 from Tim, and it was made out of the aforementioned VW fan panel. And I had to try it for a while. I took it out and gigged it a few times and knocked it about, and it sounded cool, but it just, for me, sounded a little... I've never been a fan. If you've seen these videos before, I have said I've never been a complete fan of piccolo drums up until more recently, and I've started to actually enjoy them and enjoy them more, and I think that's actually still on the increase in terms of actually enjoying them. But I was very torn. I had the opportunity to actually buy that drum, and I was very torn. I came very close to actually buying it, and when it came right down to it, I actually had to go back upstairs to the recording that I'd done for the review, and I had to sit there and listen to how it sounded under a microphone to give a final yes or no as to whether I wanted it. But ultimately I thought I could do with something a little bit deeper, and that's where this particular drum comes in. I actually knew of this drum at the time I had the other drum, and Tim and I had sort of talked about it, and he told me that it was actually in a shop. It was in Sound Attack actually in Colchester. And before I gave up on the other drum, I actually had a look at the sound file that they had done for this drum, because it was in there to be sold if they could sell it. And I thought ultimately I would go for something with a little bit more depth. Now this is a 14 5.5. As I said, it's made out of this. It's a steel shell, and it's made from the aforementioned VW panel. And apart from those two drums, there was actually another drum. It was a 14x8, which was also made from that panel. So there were three drums made out of that panel, and that drum actually went to the owner of the panel, so I never saw it. This particular drum, I actually went up to meet him because he lives about 100 odd miles from here. I met him halfway a couple of months ago, and I picked this drum up from him, and I've played with it, I've gigged it, I've taken it apart, and I eventually bought it because it did actually have that little bit more that I was looking for than the Piccolo had. Came with Aquarian heads, top and bottom, clear on the bottom, and a coated on the top. But I took the coated off, and I put a Remo ambassador on there, just because I wanted to try it with the Remo on it. It's also got pure sound wires on. They're the main sort of features of the drum. In terms of sound, as you'll hear, because I have actually just reviewed this, so I'm doing the same video in terms of sound file and stuff as was for the review. So the lower tuning actually sounded a lot. I think it actually sounded a lot cooler. Little bit, obviously a little bit more sort of snarey sound, bit of a fatter sound. When I tuned it up a little bit to a medium and then to a high tension, it actually sounds quite. Sort of dry and almost a little bit sort of dead and maybe a bit boxy on the recording. Although it actually didn't sound that way. Didn't sound quite that way actually in the room here. But because it wasn't close mic'd, it was the mics are about 43 inches above. They were a good sort of way above. The sound might not have sort of translated quite as well as I was hoping, but you know, it's one of those things. I'm not a sound engineer, I'm still working on that stuff. But I actually did find, in terms of playing, well, potentially using this drum, I have actually used it with the band, but in terms of using it sort of more regularly for ska stuff, what I actually found was that where it was when it was cranked, and I pretty much sort of cranked it as hard as the lugs would go. It actually had a pretty cool sound. It was quite dry, but it was very defined, and it had quite a sort of lot of crack to it. Now, I almost always play with a rim shot, and in fact, actually, when I do play, I probably get about 3/4 of the stick across the head. So I get quite a loud, fat sound out of the drum, which is not what I did in the sound file, because obviously there's no point in beating the crap out of it in the sound file when you're trying to demonstrate something. So in terms of how I would use the drum in a live situation, in a live context, the actual sound would be a lot more full and a lot with a bit more ring to it, obviously with sort of the inherent harder hit. But yeah, I still think it sounds cool in the sound file. That's why I'm not going to change it. But I may actually do. In fact, the kit behind me at the moment, I will do a sound file on at some point in the near future, just when I get the time to. And what I'll do is I'll probably put this snare back onto that kit, and maybe I'll put a link to that sound file on this review when it's done, so you can maybe hear how it sounds in an actual playing context, as opposed to me tapping it like a wussy and you know, playing almost with pencils, because it doesn't. I don't think it's fully representative of how it would actually sound in the live situation. So, but it is a very cool drum. I like it. It's got well, I won't get it up so you can see it. But in terms of on the bit to come in the video, you'll see it's actually referred to as the PesCon drum. It's because it was actually, the van was a pest control van. So it's got it's said it's PESCON still on the shell, which is why it's called the PesCon snare drum. So again, apart from it being I guess in that sense that the actual provenance of the drum is a little bit more pronounced than maybe some of the others of Tim's drums, because the history isn't quite so obvious. And I like that. Again, that sort of appealed to me, and that's part of the reason why I bought the drum. Apart from anything else, I think it's you know, it's finally cool to own one of Tim's drums. I really do dig what he does. Todd Zuckerman has 2 of Tim's drums now. I can't remember exactly which ones they are, but if you look on Todd's website, I actually know that they are featured in his list of snare drums, because I've checked them out. So have a look at Todd's website, and you'll see those. But in terms of the drum, it's there's not really much at the moment. I don't have any sort of history other than what I've said. But as I said, it was one of 3. The 14x4 is actually still up for sale, as far as I know. Sound Attack in out in Colchester, which is in Essex as well. And I'm thinking that's it. I think that's probably it for this one. Check Provenance out though. Tim doesn't make a lot of drums. I think he has got some drums that he's got for sale. In fact, you also get, not with the snare drum in it, because there is a drum in here and I can't remember. I think it's the newer Cravioso. But that's actually the case that comes with it. That's that. And hopefully you enjoy the sound file. If you've got any comments, obviously, please do let me know. And if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. Because everyone that sees it, that does subscribe, I find it very flattering, and it at least helps me out in terms of knowing that people are still interested, and that's very, very, very cool. And as always, I'm very grateful. So thanks a lot. Please do enjoy, and till the next one. Thank you. See ya. Just show you some of the features of this drum. Donette strainer, triple flange tubes, double-ended tube lugs, Donette butt plate. Quick look at the inside of the drum there with the bearing edge. Now have a look at the outside of the drum. PesCon, big bold letters, and you can just see the seam as it comes up there as well, where the join is.